Hi, I'm Rich Miller. At Virtua, we believe citizens need to be informed about the important healthcare issues affecting their lives. That's why we're proud to support healthcare programming produced by the Caucus Educational Corporation and their partners in public television.
Funding for A Conversation with Governor Chris Christie and Steve Adubato has been provided by Virtua, TD Bank, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, Verizon Communications, Johnson & Johnson, Community Education Centers, New Jersey Manufacturers, and by these public-spirited organizations committed to informing New Jersey citizens about the issues that matter. Promotional support provided by Commerce Magazine and by NJ.com. Small news, big news, true Jersey.
This is One-on-One.
When you first heard that they were doing Charlie Rose and Gayle King, didn't you go, what?
People like laughing at others, so I don't mind if the other is me.
See, you go right into the character. That's what it is.
I'm bringing families together a half an hour each week. Man, I'm doing something special.
And so I do feel successful.
Hi, I'm Steve Adubato. I recently had the opportunity to sit down with New Jersey Governor Chris Christie for a compelling conversation where we discussed a range of issues affecting New Jersey and the nation. Here's that conversation now. Hi, I'm Steve Adubato. Welcome to the Tisch WNET studio here in New York City. We are here with Governor Chris Christie in front of a live audience. You can prove it here, folks. They're in front of a live audience. They're enthusiastic. Yes. Governor, let's do this. We have a question from FiOS. Folks in FiOS are asking, let me try this one. This FiOS question was about legalizing marijuana. Mm-hmm. Now, you've had a very interesting set of positions. Actually, recently you just talked about this. You are not a big fan when it comes to criminalizing folks who have drug problems. You want them to get treatment.
Correct.
Legalize marijuana?
No. Because the fact is that we've seen over and over again in more recent studies that marijuana is a gateway drug to other more serious drugs, that marijuana does serious damage to the brain, and it is not the type of thing that I think we need to see in the state of New Jersey. That is very different from talking about someone who now has the disease
of addiction,
because it's a crime. That's why you criminalize it. The federal government says that marijuana is a drug that is not legal in the United States. Now, I understand there's another place where the Obama administration talks out of both sides of its mouth, but they let certain states legalize now, yet they still say at the federal level they have DEA agents doing marijuana cases every day. We like consistency in New Jersey, and the fact is, it makes no sense in my mind to legalize marijuana, and as long as I'm the governor of the state of New Jersey, we will not.
Okay. It may be repeating after you make it clear publicly what your intentions are with respect to the presidential campaign. Could you let folks know here in the audience, but more here in New York, but also across the region watching, what will you base your decision on?
3 things. Is it right for me? Is it right for my family? Is it right for the country? If I answer yes
in what order?
Me, my family, the country. And if I answer yes to all 3 of those things, then I'll run. And if I don't answer yes to all 3, I won't.
How much, if at all, does it matter to you that your good friend and someone you respect a great deal, Jeb Bush, has made it clear that he looks like he may run?
It's not one of the 3 questions.
Okay. So here's the thing. The presidential thing. Again, we're Jersey guys, and you a bit more assertive than some of us.
That's what I've heard.
I've seen the video, and I know you personally, and I always find your personality fascinating. And you get a reaction from people. Let's just say that. So here's the question on demeanor. In many ways, it's your calling card. It's how you get stuff done. But there are some who say, hey, I don't know, is it presidential? Here's my question. If you decide to run for president, and this show will air if the governor decides in January or February. This will be a really good show, and we'll milk it. Trust me, we'll just keep repeating it. Stuff happens out on the presidential trail. It happens in New Jersey, so everyone's following you. Here's my question. Things happen, and a reaction is easily gotten in tense situations. Do you have any intention of doing anything to tone down, mute, do anything to alter your demeanor?
No. Why would I? It's who I am. I mean, if people want somebody different than if I ever ran for president, then they'd vote for somebody different. But I don't intend to become a phony to win an election.
I didn't say phony.
Well, if I'm not acting like who I am, that's what I would call you.
All of us try to tweak, modify, change wherever we think we can be better. Well, my question is this. We were running a promo to get people to watch the show, and you had this really great spot where this guy was holding up some sign and being really irritating, and you said, sit down and shut up. And we're like, we have to put that in there.
Sure.
Because that'll get people to watch. I heard you say after
Tells you
that.
a lot about the motivation of the media, but okay.
Governor, you said it. It was great video, and you said afterwards that you wouldn't have done anything differently because the guy was being ridiculous, you said.
Correct.
Okay, so here's my question. Are there times that you say to yourself, you know what? Maybe there was a different way to handle that. That's what I'm getting at. Not that you change your personality.
Everybody says, I mean, I don't think
That's all I'm asking.
Well, that's not all you're asking, because what you'll do.
You become a different person.
What you'll do and what others will do with that piece of tape is you will take the small piece of whatever I say, and then you will use that to say, see, Christie now says he will change.
I would do that?
Yes, you would. The same way in the promo, I'm sure that you only showed the sit down and shut up part. There is a
Governor, we saw you laughing and smiling about Springsteen and so many other parts of that.
There is a 90-second run into that where I let that guy yell, go on, block the cameras with his signs, speak over me, get booed by the crowd.
All true.
And I say nothing except continue to try to give my speech. But what the media typically does is show the last 5 seconds, which when I finally get to the point where people are booing, people are upset, we need to move on, this person's making a rude spectacle of themselves, I say, now sit, and what I said was, I'm happy to talk to you alone later, but until then, sit down and shut up. And I don't regret that for 1 second. And I wouldn't change that part of myself. But what you all like to do is to take that small part and say, look at him. All someone had to do was stand up and say something, and bang, he says, sit down and shut up. Not only out of context, but it's to make the point that you make, because people like to watch that. So you say, okay, well, people like to watch it. They want to watch this program tonight, so let's show the 5 seconds of Christie rather than the bigger part. That's the part of the game, and that's the business that I'm in,
but it's
and I understand that.
But you want edited, Governor, right now.
Well, that's right, and I don't think they've seen me punch you yet. But but they live in hope, given the promo that you showed. So my only point to you is that if the question is, if you're asking me, do I all the time,
especially in a presidential campaign, because
not
things get
especially
crazy.
in a presidential campaign, it's no different.
You don't think so?
No, listen. People try to egg you on in a gubernatorial campaign. They'll try to egg you on in a presidential campaign. It's just the way it goes. But the thing that often folks in the media make the mistake of is, and Matt Lauer asked me this on his program, do you have to control yourself more when you run for president?
I saw that today.
My answer to him was, what makes you think I wasn't under control? What makes you think that wasn't exactly what I wanted to do? It may not be what you would do, but it's what I would do. And you know what I think the most important thing is when you're deciding to vote for someone? Do you know them? Who are they? Are they trying to fool you, or are they giving you who they are? Nobody thinks I'm trying to fool them.
Okay, Governor. Would you like to move on to another topic before
Whatever you like.
punch me?
I'd be happy to talk about that for as long as you like.
No, but you have.
I mean, I'm happy to do it.
But you have no desire to get physical with me. I know that.
No. Why would I?
No, but
You've been kind and generous so far in your questioning. I'd be happy to continue to have the interplay.
Let me bring up another topic.
Why not?
And see what happens.
Let's go.
Post-Sandy recovery. You're not happy about it.
That's not true.
Oh.
That's not true.
You're not happy about it because you see lots of people who are not in their homes, and you're not happy with the pace of it. I heard you say it.
Listen, I've said that I'm not happy with the pace of home rebuilding. That's much different than saying I'm not happy with the pace of post-Sandy recovery. Post-Sandy recovery.
What has gone well, what hasn't?
Everything but the home rebuilding has gone at an extraordinarily good pace. And the fact is that on home rebuilding, it's just much more difficult. And the programs have been more difficult to administer because it's much more complex. The federal regulations are enormous. And every home that existed before we can rebuild it, has to have a historical significance review, an environmental impact review. All those things are required by our massive, over-regulating federal government. And it delays everything that goes on. And then every piece of paper has to be documented. Every piece of paper has to be produced in duplicate to the federal government and HUD. And these are all regulations that have been passed over the period of time by the federal government. And it makes it much, much more difficult. And we made some mistakes.
I was going to say, how much of it is on them and how much do you take on your end? On the
some of it's on us.
What?
I mean, some of it is on us. I mean, I think the fact is that, we had to stand up billions of dollars of programs over a period of time that we never run before. So mistakes are going to be made. Totally new. No, we never had the second worst natural disaster in American history before. And so, of course, we had to learn things, and we got better over time at doing it. And we've made changes that I think have improved the pace of it. And if you talk to people who have dealt with us, we've gotten much better at it. So I'm always looking to improve and get better. But I wanted to stop you in the question because if you talk to business people around the state, if you talk to the folks, the infrastructure folks in the state, the rebuilding that we've done to the destruction that was done in this state has really been, I think, extraordinary. And we've done it in a way where we've been underfunded by the federal government, but we've continued to fight and to do the things that we needed to do. And I think for the overwhelming majority of people who were impacted by Sandy, their lives are back to a new normal. And for those people who aren't, we're going to continue to work as hard as we can until they get back to a new normal.
I want to ask you about the inheritance tax, or some people call it the double taxation when you die in the state in just a second. But the whole question of Bridgegate, there isn't really much to talk about because it's in the hands of Paul Fishman. He's doing what he's doing. Here's my only question, not about the details of the case at all. Not in a position to talk about it clearly. When you look back, is there any part of that where you say, this is an important lesson I learned as a leader?
Ask more questions. Don't be as trusting.
Even of the closest people to you?
Of people who you're relying on to do their job. Yeah. Now, I'm generally a very trusting person. And I was too trusting.
The whole question of the inheritance tax. You got two taxes, Governor, when you die. I don't know, I don't know.
Estate tax and inheritance tax.
Yeah, so.
Estate on the dead person, inheritance on the living person.
And there is a movement in the state legislature to eliminate the
estate tax.
Explain that to folks, because New Jersey is one of only a few states that actually has.
One of two states in the country that has both an estate tax and an inheritance tax.
It's very expensive to die in this state.
Extraordinarily expensive to die in this state. The death tax here is also well below the federal exemption. You get a $5 million exemption, meaning the first $5 million of your estate is exempt from federal taxes. In New Jersey, you know how much is exempt? $675,000. Now, let me tell you something. For people who own a house in New Jersey, if they just own their house free and clear and have a little bit of retirement income left over, and remember what happens here. Once you get to $675,001, the tax isn't on the $1. It's on all $675. This doesn't affect rich people. This affects most middle-class families in New Jersey who own their own home.
But Governor, Assembly Speaker Vincent Prieto, when this issue came up at the Business and Industry Association forum that I was moderating, said, I would like to get rid of it too. The problem is we reap between $350 and $400 million from this tax. And if we do away with the tax, someone's got to tell us where we're going to make up the revenue because we already have a bunch of, you're shaking your head.
It's always the same story. There's never a tax they want to get rid of, ever. because the way they spend your money is much more important than the way you spend
I
it.
believe they, meaning?
The Democrats in the legislature, just so we're really clear.
So the Republicans have nothing to do with this?
No, they're not in the majority. If they were in the majority, we would have repealed the estate tax already.
Governor, where would you come up with that money, by the way?
You'd cut spending.
Any particular program?
I'm not going to sit here and go through the budget with you, Steve. I've balanced the budget every year for 5 years. I'd balance it again.
All right. I've got NJ.com, I've got FiOS, I've got Twitter questions, all about the gas tax. People are concerned about the roads and bridges. The New Jersey Department of Transportation, you read all the studies. I know you know that a very high percentage of our bridges are crumbling, are antiquated, are dangerous, our roads. We don't want to have the Mayanas Bridge situation. We all know what happened. God forbid, middle of the night, people don't know what happened, the bridge collapses, people die. No one wants that. It is argued that you and your colleagues in the legislature have a plan. Does that plan potentially include increasing the gas tax in New Jersey, which is the second lowest gas tax in the nation? Why not just, you know what? Nobody wants taxes, but we're going to increase the gas tax.
Listen, I have said that when I negotiate with the legislature on issues of importance, and this is an issue of importance, how to fund infrastructure. And by the way, just so people are not misled by your question, we're spending $3.2 billion a year between federal and state funds in New Jersey to maintain bridges, to maintain roads, to improve mass transit. $3.2 billion a year already. So I don't want people out there who are listening to go, oh, we're spending nothing on this stuff and this problem is just so awful.
Well, we're way behind.
Listen, the whole country is behind, Steve. The whole country is behind. Federal government hasn't passed a highway bill in a long time.
There's an infrastructure crisis.
There's an infrastructure problem to deal with. And so when I negotiate with the state legislature, I don't do it on live television. I do it in my office, behind a closed door, and that's the best way to come to an agreement. And so I'm having discussions with the Senate President, the Speaker, and the Republican leaders of the legislature, and I'm hoping that we can come with a solution to the problem. If we can, that's great, and if we can't, we'll have to do something else. But I'm not sitting here in a tizzy over it.
No, but a gas tax is possible.
I'm not going to sit here and negotiate on live television. Why would I sit here?
But you said everything was on the table.
Do you have any votes in the legislature? Because if you do, then maybe we can turn that off and you and I can talk about it. But if you don't, negotiating with you, with all due respect, does absolutely nothing for the people of New Jersey. I'll negotiate with the gentlemen who have influence in the legislature.
Okay, why don't we talk about, by the way, I just want to remind you we have an audience that the governor is playing to and clearly getting the reaction that he wants. Fine. Pipeline. You're up in Canada talking about the Keystone Pipeline. Twitter question, NJ.com, FiOS. Everybody wanted to know this, right? Even on my Twitter account. You've got millions of people following you. How about this? They said the governor was up in Canada talking about the Keystone. What is the Keystone Pipeline, by the way?
Keystone Pipeline is a pipeline that's been proposed by the TransCanada company to go from Canada down to the Gulf Coast of the United States to deliver oil both from Canada and from North Dakota to refineries to be sold and used here in the United States.
You like that?
Yes, I do.
Environmentally dangerous?
No. In fact, the president's own State Department has said there's no environmental concerns. The president's own State Department has said there are no environmental concerns.
There's another pipeline. Folks are asking about the Pilgrim Pipeline, which is a route, it brings crude oil from Albany, New York to Linden, New Jersey. Mm-hmm. You have not expressed an opinion on that pipeline.
Right.
Because?
Because they haven't put forward their application for the pipeline yet, and they're supporting documents. And so I would be just talking about stuff that was characterized in the newspaper, which for a responsible person is really not the right thing to do.
Now, I do know you did not negotiate on live television.
Yes. And I don't talk about issues that I don't have, information about. So, there's all kinds of people talking about it. They haven't even applied for their permits yet to the State Department of Environmental Protection. So it would be wrong for me to express any opinion because it might send a signal one way or another to regulators that would not be appropriate for me to send until we have all the information. So, sometimes you just have to be responsible.
What have I not asked you that I should have asked you? I got more, but what have I, seriously?
you know, that's not my job. My job here is to answer. If we're going to start getting into me questioning, you need another hour. At least.
All right. How about the national debate about guns?
Okay.
All right. New Jersey has some of the strictest laws. I mean, I'm not even going to say where it came from on social media because everyone wanted to know your view on New Jersey's very strict gun laws. Are they strict enough, number one? And if, in fact, you ran for president, would you do anything to try to change the gun laws in this country?
Well, first off, are the laws in New Jersey strict enough? Yes. Secondly, in terms of the country, if I run for president, I'll certainly be happy to talk about that. But my job right now is here in New Jersey. And in New Jersey, I think the laws are strict enough in terms of the way we handle gun ownership. In fact, they might be a little bit too strict.
Too strict?
Yeah.
For example?
Well, I mean, you know, there's a difference here in our state. It's much more restricted than most states in terms of ordinary citizens who have absolutely no criminal record at all and their capacity to own a firearm. And but that's something the legislature does not want to deal with. In fact, they want to make their laws even more strict than they are now. So it's an area where you'll probably see no change.
A couple quickies. Paid sick leave. Newark, Jersey City, my hometown of Montclair, which you love, right?
Sure. I love all of New Jersey, Steve.
I know you love all of New Jersey. We have a lot of towns, right? A lot of school districts, right?
Yes, we do.
Paid sick leave. The idea that the state would mandate that you get paid. You're sick. You don't get a choice if you're an employer. Vincent Prieto, the Assembly Speaker, is pushing that whole idea that it should be mandatory. Paid sick leave, a good idea?
Bad idea. Bad idea.
Well, that was quick.
Well, when I have an answer to a cogent question, I give it.
To a coach. I'm not even going to take the bait. Go ahead, just answer.
It's a bad idea, and these towns that are doing it just continue to make New Jersey less and less competitive. And then when businesses leave this state, they want to know why. And the reason is because we make it more and more and more expensive for businesses to do business. That means they can't make money, they don't hire people, and they're going to go places where they can hire people and can make money. Bad idea. And it's playing to the grandstand.
Too many standardized tests for kids in school in connection with Common Cause that parents are complaining about. Common Core, excuse me.
I have real concerns about Common Core. I set up a commission that's in the midst of studying it right now, and I have real concerns about it and the effect it's had on our kids. But we do have to have testing to know where our kids are.
Too many tests.
I don't know about too many tests, but maybe not the right tests. And we now worked on a new test, a PARC test, that I think will be better than the ASK test that we had before.
You do think the PARC test?
I said we're working on the PARC test to see if we can make it a better test than the previous test that we've had. And by better, I mean to give us a better read on how children are actually performing so that we can customize their education to fill their gaps.
Got it. Give me 1 minute on Barack Obama on ISIS.
Well, I don't think he thinks it's the JV anymore.
He did call it the JV.
He did.
What do you call him?
A terrorist threat that needs to be dealt with. We need to understand the nature of the enemy, and we need to deal with them.
How would you deal with him?
Now, I'm going to sit here and lay out military strategy. I mean, fact
Have you thought about it?
What I've thought about is that we're not clear at all around the world, not just with ISIS, but in other places, about the defense of our friends and the way we'll treat our adversaries. And we have a lot of confused people in the world. It's not good to have America sending confusing signals. When you say you're going to draw a red line in Syria, and then they cross the red line and you don't do anything, that's not a good thing for the world or for our country.
Final question. Most important thing you want to accomplish as governor in 2015, because some other things might happen that year for you.
I hope we can put the Transportation Trust Fund on a sustainable basis going forward. I hope we can continue to reform the pension and benefit system. I'm hoping we can reduce taxes in a meaningful way for the people of New Jersey. Hoping we can continue to improve education in our urban areas so that no matter what your zip code is, you're going to get a good education that prepares you either for college or for work. And lastly, I hope we continue to see the kind of economic growth we've seen. Our unemployment rate is now down to 6.4%, which is the lowest it's been since 2008. And that's a really good sign for New Jersey, but It's still a bit above the national average, so we still have more work to do. But when I came into office 5 years ago, the unemployment rate was 10%.
10%.
So
And now,
we've done
Ken?
6.4. We've done pretty well.
Where would you like it to be?
I'd like it to be at the national average or less.
Not satisfied there yet.
No, but you know, we've created nearly 150,000 new private sector jobs in the last 5 years. And for those 150,000 families, I think they're probably feeling much better tonight than when they weren't working.
Yeah, you still love your job, right?
Oh, God, yeah, sure.
But you're thinking about the other job.
Of course. I mean, listen, this job's done in 3 years for me, no matter what. I can't run for governor again. I'm term limited. And I've got to decide what I want to do with the rest of my life. I mean, it's an interesting time for me. I'm 52 years old. You know, you start to think about what do you want to spend the rest of your life doing? And I've got to make that decision. And I've said to everybody, I'll make that decision the first part of next year. And if it means pursuing the presidency, then we'll do it the same way we've always done everything. And if it doesn't, then we'll finish the job as governor and we'll decide, you know, what we're going to do next to support my family. You know, I've got a 21-year-old who's a junior in college, an 18-year-old who's a freshman in college, an 8th grader who's 14, and a 6th grader who's 11. I'm working for a while, no matter what.
Governor Chris Christie. I want to remind folks that I want to thank our partners at WNET, NJTV, NJ.com, our partners at WABC, FiOS, One News, WBGO 88.3, all of our folks, all of our partners who have been with us. It's been a great, and thank you very much, Governor.
The preceding program has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation and NJTV in cooperation with 13 for WNET, WHYY, FiOS One News, 77 WABC AM New York, and by WBGO Jazz 88.3 FM. Funding for A Conversation with Governor Chris Christie and Steve Adubato has been provided by Virtua, TD Bank, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, Verizon Communications, Johnson & Johnson, Community Education Centers, New Jersey Manufacturers, and by these public-spirited organizations committed to informing New Jersey citizens about the issues that matter. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area.
New Jersey Manufacturers Insurance Company offers policies that can protect against auto accidents, fires, windstorms, floods, and many other serious and urgent situations. Tips on what to do before, during, and after you're confronted with the unexpected are on the emergency preparedness section of njm.com. New Jersey Manufacturers, helping the Garden State prepare for the unexpected for nearly a century.